Hello, my name is Cynthia Alice Anderson, and I'm the owner and founder of the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. We are now completing 3 years of being on the air, and I wanted to personally thank you for all of your support. As a listener, as you share the podcast on your social media pages, and for your financial support. We would not be where we are today without this amazing support, which is in over 80 countries and 150,000 downloads worldwide. So I thank you, dear friend. I'm grateful we get to walk this journey together, and I cannot wait to see what we're able to do in another 3 years. Thank you again, dear friend, and blessings on the journey.
Supportek Staffing presents The Authentic Spiritual Journey, a weekly show featuring real and practical spiritual conversations from diverse perspectives here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Today, episode 174, Going Through the Motions. And now your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Hello, good morning, and welcome to The Authentic Spiritual Journey. My name is Cynthia Alice Anderson. I'm the host, and I'm here this morning in 818 Studios with my producer.
Good morning, everybody. This is Dave Croft. Thank you so much for joining us for episode 174 of The Authentic Spiritual Journey. As always, want to welcome you to the week. Hope you are doing well, and we're getting settled in.
Yeah, I almost forgot to put down my coffee cup as I was introducing myself. And as we were getting going, I was just thinking, I don't think our listeners know just how early we get up to bring the show, and happy to do it and honored that you're listening. But today is a great day. We always have great shows planned, and what I love is how Spirit takes over. Sometimes we have a show in mind, and then a different topic comes up pre-show, and that's what happened today. So we pushed the other titles back a little bit because of what's alive in each of us today. But happy Monday, and glad you're with us on the journey today. We love hearing from our listeners, and we got this great email. I don't know, for some reason, Dave, I'm feeling like I want to share it just right now at the front end.
All right, let's go for it.
And, wait, hold on. Let me just grab it real quick. Yeah, I want to bring it to our listeners because I think all of us can relate to this. But first, Dave, give us the title of today's show.
Today's episode is titled Going Through the Motions. Going through the motions. Going
through the motions, yeah. We can't say that without kind of laughing, chuckling at ourselves, because sometimes on the spiritual journey, that's what it feels like, right? Just going through the motions. Maybe we're not feeling it. Maybe we're not blissed out every time we meditate or do our spiritual work, but we just go through the motions. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. And I want to see if you relate with this email that one of our listeners sent. And by the way, I have her permission to share it. It says, "Dear RCA, I am outing myself. I look at the titles of your podcasts, and sometimes I think, well, I'm not sure I'll get much out of that one, but I listen to it anyway. And I always learn something, and I'm glad I listened. 2 recent examples. The episode with Greg O'Connor, when he said no is not rejection, it is a signal to change our direction, our thinking. He gave me an entirely new way to think when someone says no to me and when I have to say no to someone else. No can be judgmental or critical, but it can also be said out of love, concern, fear, respect, regard, etc. The episode with John Two Hawks first introduced me to his beautiful music. Second, when he spoke about cultural heritage and your Irish grandmother did not think he was a % Irish. She thought he was 100% her grandson. That triggered a whole thought process. I am 100% of all the cultures of my parents, grandparents, etc., which makes me 300% or something more greater than I would have been otherwise. My children are a combination of my husband's and my cultural heritage, so they will be more or greater than. Eventually, maybe, we will evolve to be 100% of all cultures or of one greater thing, humanity. It is similar to something you spoke about in an earlier podcast, and you used the example of a cup of water taken from the ocean. The ocean was in that cup and was the ocean you were sitting in front of. Just like God is a part of each one of us, and each one of us is a part of God. Ultimately, maybe that is the point. We are all part of a greater single thing, humanity, one with God. Isn't that beautiful? So, and then she goes on to say just that she's going to continue to listen to the podcast, with gratitude, etc. And I thank you for that, dear listener. That made our day. And it also spoke to exactly what we're talking about today.
Yeah. And before we get into it, hey, if you ever
Sure.
want to reach out to us, you can go to experienceofthesoul.com/contact and send us a message, whether show topic, show idea, or if you have any questions, specifically for Reverend Cynthia Alice, reach out to us. We would absolutely love to hear from you.
I'd love a question for Dave, too.
A question for me?
You go, a question for Cynthia Alice. I was like, well, they might have a question. You never know, Dave.
Yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has. I don't know what I could bring to the table in this, but you know.
Well, you bring your life and experience, just what we were talking about earlier.
I appreciate that. And it's funny because today's topic, we had this whole other show on deck. Like we were ready to start recording said other show. Yep. And then I'd say, well, I have a question for you, and we've joked on the show about, how I used to kind of like when Shannon would say, take a breath, and I would kind of just fake, go through the motions and all breathe. Of that. And meditation, like really pushing into it lately as part of my miracle morning.
Right.
Well, recently I have found that I've been getting impatient during my meditations, and I have been kind of just a little bored through them. I've been using the Headspace app, which has been fantastic. And, they have a bunch of like courses, and I found myself kind of at the end of a series of courses, hundreds of minutes worth of meditation, because it will actually show you've meditated X number of minutes in total. And so hundreds and hundreds of minutes of meditation. But by the time, I get up into the studio in the morning, it's like 6 a.m. I've already been up for, an hour and a half to 2 hours going through my whole miracle morning. And I'm ready to get to work, and I'm ready to sit down. And I found myself getting impatient during my meditation times, which leads to me just kind of, instead of pressing into the meditation, I'm thinking, okay, I need to be doing this. I need to answer email. I've got this on my to-do list. I need to pay this bill, and which is so the opposite of what the meditation is trying to get you to accomplish. It's actually trying to get you away from that kind of scattered brain thing. But then all last week, I didn't do any meditations at all last week because I found myself, and you mentioned this before, just kind of punching the clock. And I said, why am I doing this? I feel like I'm not getting anything out of it right now. And I'm just doing it because, my Miracle Morning book said, it's part of the Miracle Morning. And so I started doing it out of sense of obligation. And what's that about? And so I had asked you before we started this other show, what's the deal with that? And you're like, you know what, Dave? We have another show. Let's put a pin in that one. We'll circle back to it. Believe me, listeners, we will get to that topic. But clearly, this is something that is effervescing in our consciousnesses right now.
It is. And, not just yours, of course, as the case may be, all of us, especially because, we are really in our world right now, really anchored in the mind. And what I mean by that is that culturally right now, the narrative is think your way through it. So not only do we have our own individual journey, but we're part of the greater collective. And that is just the predominant energy and always has been. It's what Jesus meant when he said, be ye in the world, but not of the world. In other words, quit trying to solve problems at the level of the mind. But of course, when you're trying to meditate and you're trying to still the mind, you don't always see immediate results. And so it seems like, well, why am I spending all this time doing this every day if, I still have to the old saying goes, what did I do before enlightenment? Chop wood, carry water. What did I do after? Chop wood, carry water, And so, I think in our world, and I will say for me personally, I love to see results. And I can't always point to the exact thing I'm getting out of meditation in the way I can if I buy something or if I'm eating something or drinking something. It's like there's a cup in my hand. There was coffee in it. The coffee is now gone, and that's a physical thing I can know about. But if I go sit down to meditate and I get up, it's like, what just happened? So anyway, so the mind wants, the interesting thing is the mind is meant to think. That's why we have the mind. It is, its job is to think. And so the discipline of turning off the mind is, one that is, created over time, over not only weeks and months, but even years of meditating. And so sometimes it does feel a little bit like we are going through the motions. Dave, you're absolutely right. I was sharing with you my good friend, Greg Barrett, who's been a minister, 40 years, will say to me sometimes, I know one time he and I were leading this men's retreat, which I'm very fond of doing. A lot of men are my clients. And anyway, so I was the only woman, and we were leading this men's retreat, and so we were always at night in the morning doing a lot of deep meditation, just to make sure we were taking the group the direction it needed. Well, anyway, one morning he had been meditating, came up to me and he says to me, "Well, I punched the clock." And I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Didn't feel anything. Meditated for a half hour, punched the clock." And so I'm telling you, here's a minister. He's been in ministry 40 years, and literally, sometimes that's just how it feels. That's just how it feels. We punch the clock. We go through the motions. But it's like I want to say, and hang in there, because what you don't see is that every time you sit down to meditate, you are creating a invisible house of consciousness. So even if it doesn't feel a certain way, or even if you can't see immediate results, or you feel tired, or your mind even feels full and chattery, I want to say, hang in there, because you are creating something you cannot see. It's like every time you meditate, you're putting this invisible brick in your house of consciousness. Now, having said that, it doesn't mean it's going to feel great.
Well, I've talked about my weight loss journey and everything, and intermittent fasting, right, and part of my Miracle Mornings is part of that. And it sounds like a stall. Like when you're doing weight loss, you hit a stall where you're no longer losing any weight. Now, like ironically, a plateau, or maybe this is connected, as I'm at a weight loss stall as well. Which is funny. I'm having an epiphanal moment. I feel like I'm also at a professional stall. I think there's something else happening here.
Something is being asked of you, Dave.
Yeah, because I feel like I've stalled out in my career and my weight loss and like meditation and going through the motions, and wow. Don't mind me. I'm just gonna lay down on the couch over here.
I know, right? Let's just take a deep breath. We'll do a session.
Right.
Well, and of course, Dave, what you're saying is we've all had these moments, and that's why I wanted you to talk a little bit about it. And I'm glad you're having these awarenesses, and those are personal to you, and that's fine. But I'm glad you shared it, because I think we've all had these moments where it's like, God, it just feels like I'm doing the same things and I'm not getting the results, or I'm not moving forward. And part of that, I had a friend say to me one time, recently, well, what happens when you've reached the dream that you wanted? He said, I don't know what do I go for now? What are you going for now? You are living the dream that you wanted. So what's next for you? And that's a great question.
Well, I know what I tend to do. Mm-hmm. Let's use my weight loss as an example of that.
Sure.
I had my goal, and then I hit it, and then I just blew past my goal. Right. And then I had this other goal, which I was like, I won't get that. And then I hit that goal. And then I had my Uber goal, which was so far.
Which seemed, undoable,
and
right?
that's where my stall hit. Like I had success, and then I had more success, and then I stalled out trying to like get to my Uber goal. Professionally, it's kind of the same thing. You know, I had some success, and then I had even more success, and then the next level above that seemed so unobtainable that the motivation for that and the energy and the momentum just stalled. And it's like, you know, we just had a rocket launch this past weekend here in Florida.
Yeah.
You know, they went into orbit, you know, and it's kind of like I'm not in orbit yet. I'm just like skimming above the top of the atmosphere where there's just enough oxygen to have resistance. And I don't know, my metaphor's breaking down, but that rocket launch was beautiful. I took some pictures.
It was.
But
Mars, here we come.
I
Yeah.
know, right? So that's where I'm at. And
well, and just letting that be okay. So like that's what I want to say to you, Dave, and to any of us. It's like, it's really okay. This is part of the process. You know, also, I'll use your rocket metaphor, because the rocket does not only go up forever. Even it has to stop at Mars.
right.
You know, there's a limit to how high it can go. And there is a certain trajectory, you know, that we have at different times. And so what feels to us like a stop or a stall on the soul journey, it may just be a collecting up of energy. It may be a redefining our new normal before we go up again. So, you know, it's the ego aspect. And I hate to blame the mind, but I'll say it's the personality aspect that thinks somehow that being at what we're thinking of as a stall is in fact a stall, when it could just be a rest. You know, we're not meant to constantly go up. You know, even the ocean doesn't just come in, it goes back out.
Right.
You know, that there is a natural kind of flow to the journey. And so I've had to find that myself, because I am so driven in terms of accomplishing and doing, because I have such a passion for what I'm doing, that I want everybody else to see that passion. I want everybody else to get it in the exact moment I get it. And I've learned over time that just doesn't happen that way, that it's like from showing up, from doing talks, from reaching out, to traveling to churches, to being online, to, you know, and then there's a rest between that stuff. You know, I can't constantly reach out. There's a rest in between. And so the personality always wants to judge this as wrong, or it's not enough, or I'm not going anywhere. And it could just be like, it's time to rest a little bit for when it is time to go again, you know, and move our trajectory upward again. I mean, you got to refuel. You got to, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm thinking of all of like the rocket metaphors, you know, it's like,
yeah.
One of the most beautiful things that happened during the rocket launch, and I'll make a note. I'll put a picture.
You should. Yeah, I saw one online, and they were really beautiful. I knew a lot of people watching it. I was kind of, I was doing my own thing, but I knew about it. Yeah.
And there was a moment where the when the stage separated, and so things kind of slowed down. It's because you have this really bright kind of like yellow thing like streaking through the sky, and then it looks like it goes out. And then the next booster kicks in, and it created this huge halo that like streaked across the entire sky.
Yeah.
I mean, it looked like a galaxy. It was really, really amazing. And like I said, I'll put a picture of this. I've never seen anything like that, either in pictures, let alone live in the nearly 10 years that we've been here. And so that stall, it feels like, you know, again, rocket metaphor. If I'm in like a stage separation, you know, and I'm about to get another boost. And there's also the idea, you know, when you watch a rocket launch, it looks like there's a point where it goes up, 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 and then it looks like it starts going down. Right?
Yes.
It's like, oh my God, is it going like down? What's happening? But it's part the curvature of the earth, and part it's just going so high that we can't see that it's still ascending.
In other words, our perspective is skewed.
Right.
Okay. So, yeah, exactly right. And that is what it is on the soul journey as well. Our perspective gets a little bit skewed because we're only seeing this limited perspective that's right in front of us. But the soul of us, and what I want us always to remember is the soul of us, though, is also connected to that infinity and to eternity itself. And so even though the personality goes, well, why am I not going anywhere? It's like your soul is going, oh, it'll be fine. I got you. I know what your next steps are, but just, hang out here a little bit. So I do want to talk more about that. And I can't believe it, Dave. We're already at time for a break.
I know.
So we'll be back in just a few moments right after these messages. Thanks for joining us today, friends.
We'll return to the program in just a few moments, but first, we wanted to give a special word of thanks to our podcast partners, Supportek Staffing. Supportek Staffing is an innovative staffing agency built on the principle of caring about employers and employees as they navigate these new workforce and workplace challenges. If you're an employer, they want to be your human resource partner and help with the changes needed during the pandemic. If you're a candidate, they want to become your lifelong career agent to help you grow into your fullest potential. Supportek prioritizes support over volume, integrity over profits, and will treat your business and your career as if it was their own. You can learn more at supportekstaffing.com. That's SUPPORTEK staffing.com. We now return you to this week's episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey with your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
And welcome back. We're glad you're with us. I hope you're connecting with what we're saying today. What I know is you are, because, it's funny. I don't know if my ministry has matured a little or I'm just paying more attention, but we all really deal with the same things. I don't care if you're Baptist, Methodist, Buddhist, or, some form of Christian or Jewish. We all struggle with staying on the path and on the journey. And so it's really important to talk about it so that we normalize it and don't think it means we're unspiritual. Right? It's like, this is a part of the journey. A part of the journey is learning to, we've called it before, just riding that wave of, up and down, of feeling like really connected. And then at times wondering, why am I doing all this? Why am I doing all this?
Yeah, and so I just wanted to kind of recap from part one and make sure I heard you regarding specifically meditation. Get over it and do it anyway because it's good for you.
Well, yeah, so I was going to get back to that. So in a word, get over yourself.
Or trust the process. Let's say that.
Well, there is about a trust the process. It's also, though, Dave, you don't have to always do it by yourself. Okay. And you don't have to pretend everything is okay necessarily. Like admitting, before we do a show, which I say admitting, just meaning being honest, like, what, I'm just not feeling it lately. And then it's like, oh, yeah, that's just how I'm feeling, because in a couple days you're going to go, oh, I don't feel that anymore. It's like it starts building up and pretty soon you start judging it. And so that's what I mean about the personality. So in a word, yes, do it anyway, but there might be some other things to do. One is you may want to talk with a friend about, hey, I'm feeling a little stuck. What are you doing in your meditation right now? And they'll be like, oh man, I've been feeling stuck too. This is what I've been doing. So yes, do it anyway. And you don't have to do it alone. Like those apps are really cool. Sometimes you might want to try meditating with a friend at a certain time every day. Like saying, hey, Dave, I'm going to, tap in at 7 a.m. When are you meditating? And I'm just going to send energy your way. Please send energy my way. So sometimes getting a little support for whatever your process is helps shift that. But in the short term, yes, do it anyway, because what you don't see is what you're building in consciousness. But if over time you keep feeling that way, remember that feelings are windows into the soul and they help us discern what's best for us.
And I have to tell myself that just because I have this app, that's not the only my only meditation tool. And if we're staying in meditation, it's not the only tool I can use.
Yeah. Exactly right. And Headspace is really cool. I talked with them when they were first, coming out, and I thought it was a really wonderful program. So changing that up helps, and also even trying to do some different types of meditation just on your own in silence, like trying one of the things that has worked really well for me is using a single word or a mantra to focus on, because that helps my monkey mind, as we love to call it, from going everywhere, like what I need to do and to get in the studio, like you were saying. And especially now, there's something about how we've learned to multitask to the point that something can be going and we can completely be checked out of it. Like we can be on a device and on the TV at the same time, not really doing either. So the thing about a guided visualization is our mind knows how to turn off. And so it kind of brings you more into yourself in the moment if you can do just some silence on your own. Too, that sometimes helps, where you're just repeating a mantra like peace or peace is my favorite one because it's what I'm trying to achieve, So if I'm trying to tap in, I just go peace, 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 and I'm not saying it out loud. I'm saying it that way in my mind. And eventually, after about 100 times, pretty soon the word disappears and I go into that space. You see, can you feel it even now as I'm talking about it? I drop in and it's like, okay, blue skies. Yes, that's what I wanted. It's like the clouds part, peace. And what's wonderful about achieving that on your own is that you can do it anywhere. And so sometimes mixing up what you're doing in the meditation, how you're getting there, to that space will help. Yeah.
Okay.
And as I said to you, the Kenny Werner meditations, I've used those over 20 years and I still use them today.
Okay. Yeah. Just because I found something that worked at the beginning doesn't mean that it's the only tool that I can. And I didn't even think about like looking at the Kenny Werner stuff, and because I want to, because when I felt like it was really working, it was like really working, and I would like jump up and like I'm all meditated up, and I'm ready to go, and if I'm being honest with myself, as I pushed into more advanced meditations, it was asking more of me. Which I probably could have been a better steward of. Like throughout the day, it would say, "Hey, throughout the day, do this. Take some time." And so, admittedly, I wasn't doing everything it was asking me to
everything,
do.
Yeah.
And so maybe that kind of kept me from getting as much out of it. Maybe.
Well, maybe, and maybe it was just time to do something else. That's the other thing about, that's why it's like a journey. It's not always the same, and at different times, like I used to say, it's so funny. I've been through these various stages. I used to not do any guided visualizations, none. I would only do silence. And it got to the point where it was like, I really need something else. And then the visualizations, I started working with those. It was like, oh, that was amazing. My mind was completely free. I was feeling connected, and then after a while, that needed to shift too. And so I think, it's just a part of the process that as we mature on the journey, it shifts and changes, but the deeper ones that have that are really impactful, I think we'll probably come back to those always. Like I was sharing with you, there was a minister. Her name was Sharon Poindexter, and she was the first African American woman who also happened to be gay to have a alternative ministry. She had a ministry out of her home. She had been a professional, highly trained professional. She became a minister, and Anyway, just was an amazing soul, and she died of cancer. Well, through a string of very strange circumstances, I met and worked alongside a woman who had been her personal assistant at her death. I had also met the man who had done her last recordings, and I was given her Bible. I was given recordings of her meditations. I was given a piece of stained glass that used to be in her office. Just all these strange connections. And I ended up recording one of her messages. It's my most sold message, as a matter of fact, on purpose. And I just connected with her in the spirit realm. I never, ever met her. And I still, to this day, just 2 days ago, listened to one of her meditations to prepare me for a Sunday message, because they are so dialed in, and it's from somebody I've never even met. But the connection was so strong. It was so clear I was supposed to, come into her work, that I still have cassette tapes, friends, of this woman that became CDs. And then I downloaded the CDs onto, my computer, so that I do have them digitally now. But I still, to this day, I'm talking 25 years later, listen to these things. So I'll go 6 months without listening to it, and then it's like, I need to drop into that. So that's what I mean. The journey is up and down. There are different things you're going to need at different times, and not forcing one kind or another is also part of the maturing of the journey as well. Mm-hmm. And so you'll find ones, that really, really connect for you. And, Dave, with your voice and your work, I don't know if you've ever considered, you could do some wonderful meditations. You could even record your own meditations and listen to yourself.
Yeah.
That might be a really interesting thing for you to do.
Admittedly, I felt like I don't know why I think this, but I felt like I needed to have done more meditations before I tried to record my own. It feels like somebody who just picked up a guitar, learned a couple of chords, and I'm going to go make a record, right?
Well, actually, it's funny. I've been playing ukulele lately, by the way.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And and of course, I went right to the Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
Oh, yeah. Yep, that's I have my ukulele right here. I mean, but you say that, and that's exactly what I did with when I bought my ukulele. I'm like, I'm going to buy one, and I'm going to put it. Yeah, that's a good thought. I mean, there's not like you don't have to get a degree in meditation before you can record something, and if it's just for myself, that's cool. As far as
as a matter of fact.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, as far as trying new things, I already know this. Talking about exercise, and I've talked about how I started out by just walking, and then I'm like, okay, I'm not getting the results, so let's do some rucking, which is where you're carrying. By the end, I was carrying almost 40 pounds of extra weight. Yep. I'm like, okay, my heart rate isn't getting up anymore, so let's go into rollerblading. Okay, now let's try cycling. So I know this, and this is me telling myself I know this, but it just didn't occur to me to apply that to this side of things.
Yeah, of course. Well, it's a great awareness, and I think, all growth is basically that way. Like we do something for a while and we seem to hit a plateau. It may be asking for something new or a new awareness around what we're already doing. It's why I was joking, what do you do before enlightenment? Chop wood, carry water. What do you do after? Yeah, pretty much chop wood, carry water. But with a different awareness, right. I swear it's a different awareness. But I do think too that anytime you're feeling, long term, for instance, that there's a plateau, there may be something to change. There may be. It also may be just a time of rest.
Yeah.
And that's what's so individual about the journey is, Dave, what I may need right now might be completely different. Like I may need to, in my journey, do 2 hours of silence. I was just speaking with a church the other day, and we were talking about my prep time, and I said, "Oh no, I the day before or Saturday night, no, I'm not available. I'm going to meditate at least 2 hours." And they were like, "What?" And I said, "Well, that's for me the key to any success in my speaking as a minister. If I'm not connected I'm not going to step on that platform. No way.
Yeah.
No way. And, it's the night before, it's the morning of, but the minimum before a message, is 2 hours. I just know that's what I need. And I say that, and a early meditator says, are you out of your mind? I'm trying to figure out 5 minutes, So that's what I mean is, depending on where you are on the journey, you need something else. Now, having said that, I've had it where I've had, something came up and I had 5 minutes and I said, okay, Spirit, I'm going to just drop in. Took a big old deep breath, did some, connecting in, and that 5 minutes felt like 2 hours. So don't think, oh, well, I need to meditate 2 hours and I'm going to be spiritual. As a matter of fact, sometimes if you need 2 hours, it's because your head is everywhere. So, you may be more advanced than me. So don't hear 2 hours and go, oh, I got to get to 2 hours. That's what I mean is, depending on what's going on in your life and where you are on the journey, you really will need something different. So just trusting your own journey, but also don't let yourself off the hook and go, oh, I only need 5 minutes when you really need an hour.
Right.
like you have to be honest with yourself and your journey.
Is there a way that you can kind of sense that something isn't working before you get to the I'm frustrated with the whole thing? Or is that
I don't think so. I think, I'm working on, I have to write a thesis for my program and, my schooling I'm in. And I think, Dave, what you're describing is the archetype of awakening. Mm. Mary Morrissey called it divine discontent. It's like you get to this point and you go, God, there's got to be something more.
Right. Yeah. It's like if we could realize before we get to the point where we're ready to just like throw our hands up and nothing's working.
Right.
And then, self-doubt and all of that stuff and negative self-talk, which was the topic we were going to talk about today.
Right.
And that's coming up later.
That's coming up. Yeah. The negative self-talk. Well, that's a part of it too. And it's like, I think what I am anyway, always seeking to do on the journey is just illuminate the aspects of the journey so that we don't feel unspiritual if we're, not in bliss all the time.
Yeah.
We are souls in this very human experience and, really seeking to live a spiritual, God-centered life. Well, everything in the world is trying to get us to do the opposite of that. So at times there are times of struggle. There are times of doubt. There are times of thinking, oh, I wish this got easier, or why did you do that? And so we want to bring those aspects of the journey to light because we want to normalize them and let everybody know, no, this is a part of the journey. That's why it's called a journey and not, okay, let's hurry up and do this perfectly and get to the destination and then just try to save all these souls. Because, the saving happens every moment of every day as we remember we are connected, we are loved, we are supported by the universe. And that even in the struggle, that is part of the journey, to bless it all ultimately. So,
right.
So to get back to your original question, Dave, which I don't know if it was a question, it was really amusing that, when the journey feels hard, or like we've kind of leveled off, plateaued, what do we do? Well, I think there's several things. One is you kind of take inventory for what are the feelings telling you? Is it time to try something new? Or is it just time to rest and be okay? Just kind of, even in the time of meditation, it becomes a time of discernment, not something to do, and so we're asking like, okay, Spirit, I'm doing this activity. If it's not this, drop in this new idea of what I'm to do. And it may be, like I said, using a centering prayer activity. It may be to unplug completely and just do some deep breathing. And it may be to keep doing exactly what you're doing. That's where the discernment piece comes in. And I'll just tell you right now, for my journey, what I'm doing is I do my journaling every morning, which is very brief. But then the meditation pieces for me right now are usually 50 very deep breaths, which, believe it or not, take quite a while. Sometimes I do them in silence. Sometimes I do them with music. And then often later in the day, I'll do a guided visualization. Like if I'm trying to rest, especially in the afternoon, it helps me release the mind because I've really been in work mode. And I'll use a visualization to help me go to an aspect of myself where I'm contacting divine imagination. I'm able to be in a completely different headspace. And that gives me not only relief from the day, but it helps me connect with a different aspect of myself. So even though the breathing is wonderful in the morning, in the afternoon, I might use a different technique, to connect because of what's being asked of me in the day. I can't always connect and do 50 deep breaths at 3:00 in the afternoon. It's not what I need. And so it seems to me to be a morning activity. It helps get me ready for the day. But in the afternoon, I need something else. And then often at night, lately at night, I've needed sometimes a little something even to go to sleep. And sometimes I'll sleep with meditation music even, and sometimes a meditation right before bed as well. So it's the journey. Okay. Yeah, it's the journey.
That's good. Thanks for going there. That's super helpful, and just in a completely selfish kind of way. Thank you for dedicating an entire show to solving my problems.
I love when I can support you, Dave. You support me a lot too. So and it supports me to talk about it because, friends, I don't care where you get your spiritual food. Those people bringing you your spiritual food also have these same exact ups and downs. And so, I used to jokingly say, yeah, I'm on the journey too. The only difference is I get to share mine with 200,000 people. You are just on your own. And so I'm not, I'm just accustomed to speaking about, the various stages of my journey, but I don't think I'm better than or higher than. What I think is I'm experienced on the spiritual journey, and I'm happy to share my experience.
Yeah, what I tell my students, as far as like composition is I'm on the same path. I'm just further down the same road that you are.
Yeah.
But we're both on the same path. I'm just a little further down.
Yeah, well, how my spiritual teacher used to describe it, she would say, I may be in college and you're still in high school, but we're still in school.
Yeah. And
I like that.
Yeah, one other thing I say is I'm just a future version of you. I'm just a future version of you.
Oh, that's great. Well, recently my son and I were having this funny conversation because, I went to a Christian school and I'm just realizing sometimes the big holes in my education are really funny at times. And he was asking about this classic book. I said, classics? We went to a Christian school. I said, who reads classics? He goes, oh, right. I forgot. You read the Bible. And it was like, I said, maybe I was actually destined for ministry and there was just nothing I could do about it. I mean, we read the Bible every day. It was in the Bible in the home. And I went to chapel every day. I went to Brazil as a missionary when I was like 15 years old. Maybe I was just destined for ministry. Yeah. All right, dear friends. Well, thank you for joining us today. We hope you feel the blessing on the journey. Again, thanks to our listeners. That was a beautiful, beautiful letter that we could read. And it means the world to us when you reach out and just let us know, how we're blessing you. And we've had a couple donations come in as well. Thank you for those. And as always, when you subscribe to the YouTube channel, when you go to the website, when you support, it lets us know, hey, keep doing what you're doing. And your financial support does make it possible. So blessings on the journey, dear friend, and we will see you next week.
We hope you've enjoyed this week's episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey, presented by Supportek Staffing. This channel is also made possible because of listeners just like you. If you would like to support the channel with your tax-deductible contribution on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head over to experienceofthesoul.com/support. The Authentic Spiritual Journey is copyright 2021 Cynthia Alice Anderson, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission from RR Hot Publishing. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.